Well, hello there and welcome. My name is Kylie Patchett and I'm your host, and welcome to the Wild and Finally Fucking Free podcast. This show is all about sharing the real and raw stories from women who have undergone midlife metamorphosis, taken a leap of faith, or broken the ties that bind them in patterns of staying stuck, small, and like their needs don't matter. You see, I believe that the years leading up to and during menopause are a rite of passage, a deep invitation after so many years of giving our time, attention, and energy to others to carve out the same time, energy, and attention in ourselves, in our health, our love, our connection, our vitality, our purpose, our real needs and deep desires. You know, those ones lying dormant underneath all the duty, responsibility, pushing, striving, and achieving of our 20s and 30s? You see, at this stage in our lives, we find ourselves shifting identity potentially, no longer caring as much what other people think, and left wondering why on earth we have not given ourselves permission to do life in the way we truly want to. In this show, I speak to the women brave enough to truth talk their own midlife shedding skin stories, and the healers and helpers who help them transition through these crossroads of change. This is the midlife magic you didn't even know you needed, and I am so freaking glad you found us. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Wild and Finally Fucking Free podcast. I've got a treat for you today. I've got Dr. Ezzie Spencer all the way from LA, and we're both doing a little boogie. Hello, Ezzie. How are you?
Hello, I am so good and so excited to be here.
Oh my goodness. We're just like shooting the breeze, and I'm like, oh, we just need to press record because this is going to be one of those conversations. I always do that. I'm just going to start with a caveat of I haven't had much sleep. So let's just hope that we have had. I just did a solo episode and explained, but yes, I got woken up by shattering glass because my lamp fell off my bedside table, as I was just describing. So weird start to the day. So anyway, let's dive in. Could you please introduce your beautiful self to our guests?
I'm so fascinated by this lamp as well as the story. I feel like there's going to be some...
There has to be a reason
message.
Why. Yeah. At 4:09 or whatever it was in the morning that I get woken up by shattering glass. I'm like, whoa, okay, that's quite kind of... Anyway.
It feels like someone's trying to get your attention. So I am an author. I'm a coach. I help brilliant magical women to create love. Primarily, I work with a lot of women after they have experienced toxic relationships or the types of relationships which have just been, not what they thought relationships would be all about. And so that's the primary aspect of what I do work-wise.
And I am fascinated by the fact, I always feel like there's a thread through everything that we do anyway that leads us to where we inevitably will in life. And I feel like you are smack bang where you're meant to be, but you didn't always do this. What was your very original profession? It's like I want to put you in the phone booth and the super Ezzie. No, you're super Ezzie now. So introduce us to Lois Lane. It's going pear-shaped.
I'm like seeing like the glitter. I'm, seeing all of the sparkles.
I'm going to get you a
out.
cape now.
I'm here for it. Oh my gosh, so fun. Well, yeah, people are often surprised to hear that I started out as a human rights lawyer. So totally different career on one level. And then to your point about the golden thread that runs through it all, I specialised in supporting women who'd been subjected to domestic violence and sexual assault. That's what I did my Ph.D. in. Became really interested, particularly through the Ph.D., which is in Therapeutic Jurisprudence, which is all about the law as healing.
Thank you very much.
Think about the law.
Before we started recording, I was like, what the hell does jurisprudence mean, Ezzie? Thank you for clarifying. Yes.
We don't often think about putting therapy together with the law or therapeutic, therapeutic dimensions of the law is not something that we consider as something within the law's possibility. But given that the law often has very anti-therapeutic consequences, or it's quite traumatizing, re-traumatizing, in fact, for people who have been subjected to violence and abuse and so forth. So, it's a worthy inquiry and discovery. I thought at the time, I mean, this is over 10 years ago that I started my PhD, and I think this is starting very, 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 very slowly starting to trickle through in terms of the changes to law and policy and structure and regulation to really make the process, a little bit better, or at the very least, like not compounding the awfulness.
Yeah, well, before we started recording, we were talking about this, and when I was giving expert witness testimony back in I left forensic in 2003, so holy moly, I'm old. Anyway, I feel like I'm 510 today, but back then,
that lamp.
I know. Anyway, just have to not think about it, Ezzie. I'm going to message you, and I'll be like, now I know what the lamp was about. There's going to be something big. I don't know what it is yet. Hopefully, it's good.
It's definitely good.
It is definitely good. We'll just. But yeah, back then, the attitude, particularly of a defense barrister, was just to disparage the witness. So to just discredit, undermine, diminish. And of course, that's re-traumatizing. And most of the cases that I dealt with were major crimes. I later moved into kid crimes, so that was different again. But violence done to people, violence and terror causing, very, very traumatic violence, and then having to repeat it and actually have your point of view and your experience undermined by someone that is horrible. So the whole concept of the law as a vehicle for healing, I'm like, what? Tell me more. So what made you, when you studied law, what made you want to go into human rights first? Because I feel like this is the golden thread. I want to be pulling out this golden thread to super easy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. It's a great question. And I actually had an accident when I was 22. So I was just in the final stages of law school.
Yeah.
And I was actually told I might not walk again. So I spent around 9 months not being able to walk. And because the law school that I was at used the Socratic method, which, I mean, at the time, this is 2 decades ago now, there was no internet online learning, and the Socratic method meant it was small group teaching. You had to be there. So I had to withdraw from law school for that period. So I was literally like at home in bed, undergoing sort of several surgeries. And I was, I guess, looking for a way to transform what I was experiencing, a huge amount of pain and suffering, like transform that into something.
Yes.
I was wanting to channel that in some way. And so one of the things I did is I emailed around a bunch of community law centres associated with the university that I was at, which was the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia. And the law centre that wrote back was the Indigenous Law Centre. And so I started volunteering there. That's where I met my mentor, Professor Megan Davis, who's one of the leading voices for the voice currently in the campaign to amend Australia's constitution. And I've worked with Megan for 20 years, and it started there. And so I started to understand through a process of volunteering, and then later I became the chief editor of the Australian Indigenous Law Review, that just the Australia that I thought I was living in, that at the age of 22 as a white woman, I'd been brought up to believe Australia was not the same Australia for everybody.
No.
And that was an absolute revelation for me at the time. So I was really impassioned. What became a sort of a project while I was in bed became something which I worked with very, very deeply into, and then started to work on a sexual assault project with Megan and domestic violence. And then by the time I finished my law degree, I went back to the law and studied part-time and finished my law degree. By the time I finished that, I was looking for full-time work, and I went to work at the Australian Law Reform Commission, which was the president of the Law Reform Commission had actually founded the Indigenous Law Review, which had been the journal I'd been volunteering on for 2 years, and then had been, stewarding as the editor for 2 years after that. And so
this all begins to make sense.
I mean, you're very good in pulling out the threads. And this is I love this edition that I usually give. But.
This is the thing that I love about these interviews, is because there's something in my awareness at the moment, like the wise woman inside of me that's calling me from the other side of menopause is like, there's always a thread, and we're called and we're called and we're called. And it's just like, oh, goosebumps.
Oh my gosh, me too.
Yeah, just it's this inevitability of that. Do you look back at the accident? How do you look back and see the accident? I'm not going to put words into your mouth.
Oh, I mean, fantastic question. I mean, I feel like that was the event that set my life in the direction where I am now. I mean, I can't even like begin to express how profound it was for me at a relatively young age to experience a loss of trust and faith and ability to be able to rely on my body physically.
That's massive.
Yeah,
and something you take for granted at 22, right?
It's
the invincibility of youth. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And then from there, I obviously was set in a completely different career trajectory. I was working at a corporate law firm at the time. So this put me in the direction of human rights law and social justice.
I could never see you in a corporate law firm. Sorry, I just spoke over you. But could you see, like when you look back, do you imagine the fork in the road? I mean, these are all hypothetical questions, I know, but can you imagine 22-year-old not having had an accident, Ezzie, going down the corporate law?
I definitely can see an alternative timeline where, I think at some point I would have woken up and wondered what I was doing.
But maybe you just woke up faster.
I think I just woke up faster. And I mean, I'm tremendously grateful for the accident. Like I do truly believe like that was something which, came from the divine to set me on the course, which ultimately has led me to live a life which is just so unbelievably strange and weird and magical and sustaining and fulfilling.
Yeah.
But there's no way that my mind could have even begun to think about what it is that I do for work and the way that I live my life at the moment. Like it doesn't make any sense to most people who who knew me.
Was it breaking the trust? So it's funny. I wanted to ask before, do you look back and are you grateful for the accident? But I'm always very aware that I don't want to be, I don't know, like forcing someone to be at a point where they've had this deep surrender, because this is not my story, it's your story. But looking back now, now that you've said tremendously grateful, I wonder whether losing the faith in your body and your health, like all of those things that are just assumed, did that break something in a good way? Did it break a barrier in a good way about life not necessarily going down? I just feel like, excuse me, I'm not phrasing my question very well, but a lot of us are given this kind of, you go to uni, you get your career, you meet someone, you get married, you have the white picket fence, you get the dog, you have the 2.5 kids, blah, blah, blah. Is it that mold was broken already very early that opened up to the magic of how you live now? I wonder. Hey, gorgeous. We interrupt this gold for a delicious invitation. If your whole body has been whispering more lately, more voice, more truth, more satisfaction, more clients of the soulmate variety, more cash, more you, then this invitation is for you. Potent, my sister mind is officially open. This is my high touch, holy fuck, I'm ready sister mind for rebels in good girl clothing who are done outsourcing their power and diluting their magic to fit into someone else's business formula. If you have been craving a space where your strategy, your voice, and your energy all get to be offered, honored, refined, and amplified, this is it. Inside of Potent, You'll get my eyes on your business every single week. Copy mentoring, and that is for brand copy and content storytelling that turns your truth into client catnip. Energetic recalibration that helps you unhook old learned limitation patterns, keeping you quiet, not being seen, not being heard. Real-time, high-touch, one-on-one coaching that actually sees the bigness of your vision, and the kind of sisterhood that does not flinch when you show up in your full, messy, brilliant, phoenix rising from the ashes glory. This isn't surface level support. It's deep, potent, paradigm shifting work that changes who you are as a woman in business and a woman in life. We start in August. Early open access is open right now. For the month of June 2025, inside of this early access open doors period, you will receive juicy bonuses, extended payment plans, and access immediately to my entire library of storytelling gold. You'll find all the juicy details at kyliepatchett.com/potent. And we fill spaces, and there's only 10 of them, and more than likely only 5 by the time you listen to this, because by that time I will have offered them to the existing cohort, the beautiful original OG circle. We do actually take applications on a first come, first served basis. So come and apply, and let's get back to the magic of the episode.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it was. And I mean, I think it's sort of a funny thing, Kylie, because I believe that I knew that at the time. Like I had a knowing about that at the time as well. I didn't know where it was going to lead, but it certainly allowed me the grace, I suppose, to start following the crumbs.
I just love that language. The grace to follow the crumbs. All right, let's follow that crumb. So how do you get from there, having done the PhD and so understanding how you said so much passion, and actually also relating. I'd really love to interview Megan Davis now that you're saying that. I have just become very aware this year that, and I'm really ashamed to say at almost 50, or 48, but almost 50, I'm going to round myself up, that I also really, really incorrectly understood Australia to be the same for me as it was for other people. And my daughter has a really, really good friend who has been quite close to our family recently and is Aboriginal, and he was here for Australia Day, and I just had this moment where I was just like, oh, I just do not, in my little white woman bubble, I had no awareness that the level of racism day to day is so in his face and has completely undermined his view of himself. And I'm like, I'm ashamed that I didn't realize, it makes me quite emotional, how much damage we're doing. Oh. It really does. It just, to want to be part of reform that tries to even that experience out, I completely understand is where I'm going. So how do you shift from, so you do have an inkling back then that life is meant to be magical, that there's something quite out of the box in store for Super Ezzie. Still going to put you in a cape. How do you shift from that to what you're doing now? What are the steps? Because we've known each other probably for 10 years, from like early B school days, 2012, I think that was. So about a bit over 10 years. What's the evolution from?
Yes.
version 1, oh, I'm sure you're up to version 20, but that version that we've just talked about to this date.
Yeah, it does feel that way. So I guess just the one little piece, the nexus, when I went to work at the Australian Law Reform Commission, which is it's a federal government body tasked with reforming Australia's laws to make sure they're up to date, effective, just, and in line with Australia's human rights obligations. So that's where I started working on a national review of family violence and domestic violence and sexual assault laws. That's how I discovered therapeutic jurisprudence. And at the same time, I was doing work with Megan. I continued to work with Megan for about 15 years, on the it wasn't necessarily always my main full-time gig, but for about 15 years. We're now close friends, but I was really actively sort of involved in working in projects there, and working at community legal centres, so volunteering as a pro bono lawyer, in this and related areas as well. So all of that was happening, and that catalyzed the idea to do the PhD in therapeutic jurisprudence, because I realized, okay, the law is just so fundamentally broken. Could this potentially be a solution? Can we revision justice, and can we consider, the law as healing? Because it is, or the potential for the law to be therapeutic in nature, for the reason that it's a structural institution that people come into connection with, right? So there's an opportunity to actually have a practical impact on people's lives for the better. So that led me into the PhD. And then after a while, I realized I was less interested in the law part and I was more interested in the healing part. Like, that was really why I was there.
There's the gateway. Gotcha.
There's the gateway.
Okay. Yeah.
So then, the other piece, and just tracking back for a second, because of course it's a spiral, like tracking back to the which is a great takeaway, that it's not ever going to be linear and it's never going to make sense.
Actually, let's just call this the spiral of super Ezzie.
There you go.
No, actually, that sounds, it's almost like a negative connotation, because so often we call spiral down, but that's not what we're talking about. Anyway, continue. So you've got more
interpreted as a positive. So it's I have perhaps an unhealthy pronoia. Like, I just assume that everything is working in my favor, and that which for the most part is a helpful worldview.
Well, I think it always is. It's like
there's a touch of the naivete which can sometimes derail the best efforts that come
I am actually a big fan of playing the glad game, because sometimes it's just better. I just think, what? Let's just assume it's going to work out. I woke up with I grew up with one quite positive parent and one quite negative parent, and I watched myself go from one to the other, one to the other, one to the other, one to the other, and I'm like, let's just feed the optimist more, shall we? Because the pessimist never gotten good news, don't really want to listen. So I'm just like, just choose. Anyway, we digress again. So you said you were less interested in the law, more interested in the healing.
I realized that was my calling, was the healing aspect, and part of the recovery process of the accident had led me towards all kinds of alternative healing modalities as well throughout my 20s. So I'm, by the time I hit 30, I've been deep in a Vipassana meditation practice for several years. I have been, I have trained in energy healing, in esoteric Kabbalah, in all kinds of cosmologies and magical systems. And so, I had always had a fascination as well with the moon cycle. That had been something which had always, as a little girl, captured me, and I'd always, gravitated towards anything, the tarot, the I Ching, astrology, like everything that I could, I had gravitated towards and had very actively engaged with a lot of those systems throughout my 20s as a way of making sense.
Yes.
As for what had happened, to find meaning,
That's exactly.
And so, and so I started to track the moon cycle when I was working in law, because I, as someone who was incredibly passionate and driven, and also really activated and inflamed by the amount of injustice in you know, in the areas that I've described, but I burnt myself out, right? You know, I was doing very meaningful work.
Yeah, but
so I completely and absolutely burnt myself out.
Yeah.
It came at a cost. And so one of the things that I was thirsty for is really understanding a little bit more of the feminine wisdom, or the feminine way, or the way of being, and still being impactful, but by not sacrificing myself in the process.
Oh, you're speaking my language. I feel like this accident just has given you it's like a Monopoly game, but you've gone up like 8 levels at 22. Like, because, you know, usually what you're describing, a lot of people that I know, including myself, you know, start to try and make sense of things in their 30s and 40s, because that's kind of like where there's space and grace a little bit, maybe. But yeah, it's like you went through the eye of the needle much earlier on in life, which comes with a great gift. That's so cool.
Tremendous gift. Yeah. You know, and I'm so grateful, because it happened for me at a time when I had actually a huge amount of energy. I had, you know, the energy and the naivety of youth. And I didn't have responsibilities and obligations. I mean, I put myself through law school. I was financially responsible for myself, but I wasn't in a place where I had to take care of anybody else. So, you know, I really got to pursue I got to pursue the spirituality. I got to pursue the career and the justice and my PhD.
All in.
I got to go all in. That's an incredible luxury. You know, I certainly don't have the energy to do it now.
Oh God, no. Jesus.
It's
just thinking about all of the things that you just said, I was like, oh, I'm tired. I need a nap now.
I know.
Without a lamp, preferably, and without a cat. Anyway, it's a whole other kettle of fish. Oh, dear.
I love thinking about the cat. So yeah, I think so just sort of setting the stage for the fact that I started to talk about, you know, my more spiritual side of life when I was doing the PhD. And that was particularly the case because I had more space and more time to be able to set up a schedule that actually would work for me, rather than being within the strictures of an office environment and having to be at my desk, you know, from, you know, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And, you know, I had more space to be able to, to meditate and to go deeper into my own practices, and then to share about what it was that I was experiencing. And tracking the moon cycle was something which I had started to do some years earlier, and found that it was such a beautiful way to understand my own feminine rhythms and cycles.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I was like,
so much power.
So much power. I was like, I am so much more productive, because at the time that was something that was interesting to me. I was like, I'm so much more productive, or so much more impactful, and I'm putting in so little work. And this is great. Like, why aren't we all living this way?
And I'm not fighting against myself all the time. So there's resonance, not resistance, or surrender, not strive, or like that. Yeah, God, I've just taken so many decades to get to this same knowing. Anyway, I think that's even more important also when we start going through like the hormonal changes of perimenopause, when like one of the biggest things that I'm realizing is just the power of surrendering to what is. So not making it bad, wrong, it's natural and normal, just like the cycle of the moon, just like this, you know, the seasons, just like we are designed to go through this transition at this age, and it's all perfectly perfect. And in fact, my sense is that there's this powerful portal of rebirthing yourself that happens. And it's back to it's the same stuff we're talking about. It's the cycles of nature and the way that things are meant to always be in balance when we just let go.
We have this natural timekeeper.
Yes.
The moon. And I mean, also the sun, which is something, you know, we can get to later, because that's actually what I'm cusping on now in terms of my latest exploration. But
interesting.
I mean, this is just to take the spiral like up a few wild spins.
Cool. Because I remember when you first brought out like the lunar abundance kind of, and I was just like, oh my God, I'm fascinated by this. So So how did that work? Actually, before we get to the moon cycle work, excuse me, I'm interested, when you are studying your PhD and you start talking about the moon cycle, what responses are you getting
Well, I mean, really, really favorable. And I've got to say, everybody has always responded in my world incredibly favorably to the moon cycle work.
Yeah.
And the reason why that is firstly, you know, I'm not in a corporate law firm trying to talk to hustling litigators, right? Like
this
I'm
is,
in a
yeah.
social
That's why when I
justice
said I couldn't
environment,
imagine
yeah.
you, because
Right.
I'm like, I couldn't imagine you in a fluorescent artificial, you know, like an artificial aired fluorescently lit office from 8 until 8. Like it just, that doesn't fit with the picture I have of you, which is totally my picture, admittedly, but yeah, interesting. So people in the field of law that you were in, less, because I'm thinking if you said that to a corporate lawyer, they would roll their eyes. And we are talking in huge stereotypes. So I completely honor the fact that not all corporate lawyers are going to be rolling their eyes at moon cycles, but I'd have to say probably a lot of them.
Yeah, probably a lot of them. But I think that the thing with me is that it is something that was so deeply entwined with my own personal practice. It was coming from a place of such truth inside of me. And I feel like I somehow stumbled upon something that has universal truths. Like I developed it because I needed to develop it for myself.
Yes.
And what there, I mean, is increasingly so now, but certainly even when I was doing this and I was starting to talk about it, you know, I think 2011 is when I first formally started, you know,
Yes.
a Facebook page and a website. So, but I was talking about it and holding workshops and events and just from a place of like, hey, I've got this cool thing I want to share. I wasn't even charging at first. And in fact, I didn't charge for the first couple of years just because I wanted to share it. But what I was tapping into was a tremendous thirst that people had, specifically women had, to understand themselves, understand their bodies in relationship to nature, and to work with something which was practical and methodical. And I feel like that's one of the things where I've got, you know, nothing against sort of the new age and angels and, you know, sort of the more ethereal way of engaging with spirit and so forth. Like that's just another track. It's not my track. Yeah. My track is very methodical. It's like, you know, there's a system. This is how it works for me. This is how it is replicable. This is how it is predictable. You know, this is the understanding that I have underneath parts of that system. And it's just something that people could pick up and use and see positive results in their own lives. Yeah. Even if it just was some energy management.
Yeah, you know? Exactly. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. To me, you have always been deeply grounded in this. So it's not woo-woo and it's not kind of a theory and it's not nebulous. It's actually like this is how it will work in your life. So I think that makes it more accessible for a lot more people. And also obviously allows people to put it into practice and actually make changes and then see the benefit. And then of course, you know, it's selling itself, not that you're talking about selling, but you know, the benefits are, you know, then creating more and more of that attraction to, if I actually relax into this way of living, everything feels easier. Everything feels more magnetic. Everything feels more abundant. Like, do we not want all of that? So that's the magic of it. So good. So good, so good. So how has that work evolved? Because you just said you are now spiraling, up-leveling another 8 levels into the sun.
Another 80,000 levels, it feels like, because, you know, I mean, if the knee was really because that was the main injury that I had, it was, you know, the injury was to my knee and my leg. But, you know, if that was the first initiation, then I'd say that in a way, lunar abundance became the second major initiation of my life. Mm-hmm. And it took off. And by the time I finished my PhD, like it had become a global coaching company. I wrote a book. It was incredibly magnetic because a publisher in Australia approached me about the book, you know, and so people came to me. I started a business because people started to ask me how they could pay me. Like I never sat down there and strategized how to do it. And there was an absolute like magic in that because it was a particular moment in time where I guess following my own instincts and having a little bit of time and space just meant that I just happened to be one of the first people, or one of the early people who was
Yeah.
actively using the internet and social media
Yeah.
to share my ideas. And
Mhm.
so, you know, the blog took off, the Instagram took off, the book took off, my business took off, and all of that was obviously incredibly positive and welcome and thrilling. And you know, I had a pretty easeful career change because it was just there. You know, but it also invited me to come into a much deeper relationship with myself, and a much deeper dialogue with parts of myself which perhaps always would have remained hidden. You know, if I didn't have the visibility that suddenly I had. You know?
Interesting. I just lost my question. Oh, I know. When you said an easeful career change, was there ever a moment where you were like, will I do this and continue down this path, or will I do this, or it just naturally just unfolded?
It's such a good question, because I'm searching for the moment when I made the decision and I can't even find it.
So maybe
I feel like
one
it's
sort of just
you know, and
dissolved into another.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, like, you know, talking 10 years ago, but I can't like underestimate, you know, or I can't even like try to, even now if I think about it, I mean, now we're used to the internet, now we're used to things like that. But for me, like, it wasn't something I ever planned. I wasn't someone who ever sought the spotlight. And I found it like, it was just like I had this, it was just thousands of people would come into my world. And it was like I would have so many people reaching out and speaking. Like, it really struck a chord, but struck a chord globally. You know, the book and the sister books sold 40,000 copies. And that was just like, you know, it's the amount. And also it came from a service-based perspective, right? Like, I wanted to show up and be of service and to help. And so when you have like tens of thousands of people coming into your world, all asking for help, and my default setting was to show up and help. You know, it was extremely confronting and challenging for me, actually.
Would have been.
You know, wonderful and magical. But like I didn't have a lot of time to think in the process. You know, I feel like I was on a runaway train. That's how it felt. So I didn't sort of sit there and make a decision. Will I do this? Will I do that?
It was like
the train had left the station. And
I am on the train, like it or not. I am on the train. I may be only hanging on by one hand, but I'm on the train.
Exactly.
My goodness. Has that softened? Obviously now it's a new, like, you know, it's a new normal 10 years down the track. I'm interested to hear how the next sort of stages of your work develop. Is it in a response to something that's internally a wisdom that is coming out of you, or is it this dialogue between these thousands of people that are looking for, you know, they've found the one piece, they're asking questions, which then leads you to develop something else, or what's the magic behind, or just, again, trusting your instinct?
Yeah, it's a great question. And like, I suppose the reality of all answers, it's very multifaceted. And so I feel like a few things happened. One is that I got a US book deal, and I'd always wanted to move to New York. And then that opened up the opportunity to get the visa, you know, because with the US book deal, I was able to get a certain category of visa that allowed me to move to New York City. And when I moved to New York City, I became a resident at something doesn't exist anymore. Unfortunately, we lost that during the pandemic, but it was a major hub, like in the middle of Manhattan, a major spiritual consciousness hub in the middle of Manhattan. That's where I had a residency. So I was there every day. And my life just completely, you know, went to the next level of expansion. You know, and I started to really, yes, I mean, okay, so that was one thing. I suppose the other thing, which I'll mention as part of sort of the many things that created the perfect constellation for Relove to be born. You know, I had to do my self-love work. Like, I had to understand what were some of the blocks or barriers to my own sense of self-worth, because I wasn't fully deeply inhabited. in my self-worth. Like lunar abundance was really, for me, a practice of self-knowledge, ultimately creating personal power, right? But what I didn't have was deeply grounded self-worth. And so, or I'd lost connection with that.
That's a very important distinction, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, and so love and power, you know, I had the power part, the personal power part.
Yeah, personal power.
And that made me tremendously magnetic.
Yeah.
But in terms of the self-love part, like that was the major deficit. And of course that makes sense if you look back, like, why was it that I was so attracted to and so deeply immersed in domestic violence, sexual assault, and damage, you know, inside of partnership and relationship, romantic relationship, inside of the family unit? Like, I had worked for years in that context. And so, you know, it was definitely an invitation for me after the book was published to pause and to pull back and say, oh, like, there's a lot of blind spots that I have in terms of my relationship with myself.
Yes.
You know, and so I went and studied positive psychology because I needed to understand myself on a deeper level. And I didn't want to do that through the spiritual world because I'd done a lot of that through the spiritual world. So I knew that I needed something else. I knew I needed more enhancements or just different additions to my toolkit. You know, and I wanted a little bit more grounding, quite honestly, because I was experiencing you know, things where I needed help. So, you know, that happened. You know, the books published, books published started 2017. You know, I moved to New York in 2018. I'm studying psychology, positive psychology. I go and I do that in 2017, and really cultivating self-love, self-compassion, and self-forgiveness. You know, self-forgiveness was the huge breakthrough for me, but really needing to have ways to to take those things beyond intellectual concepts and actually ground them and feel them in my body.
Yeah,
that was critical to portal back into a true, living, breathing, fully understanding of what self-love is. Yeah, exactly. Integration. Yeah.
So, when you describe. So the lunar abundance, personal power, high magnetism, receiving lots of requests, you know, a growing business, lots of, I don't want to say the word demands because it doesn't feel that strong, but that like, you know, I need help, and your, you know, tendency or want is to be of service to people. If you don't have the grounding of self-love, is there a lot of, I'm just imagining without self-love and self-worth, there's that almost like an imposter complex, or like, can I really receive this? Do I have the capacity to hold this space for people? I don't know. Imposter complex is not necessarily the language I want to use, but what's your sense of that when you look back on it?
No, I don't think I think I didn't experience the imposter complex. I think, you know, because the lunar practice is very much a personal power practice. And I feel like the imposter aspect sort of fits when there's a bit of a deficit to personal power. So I feel like it wasn't that so much as not having a really healthy filtration system in terms of my own boundaries, in terms of not really knowing what my own needs were, and also feeling really guilty and ashamed for having needs. And so by default, then putting other people's needs first.
Where did the guilt and ashamed, if you're happy to share, where did the sense of guilt and being ashamed about having needs come from?
I would say not even from this lifetime. I just think that was something that was so deeply ingrained. And in fact, you know, the core method of relove, not to jump too far ahead, you know.
No, go.
I think it's relevant in answering this question. The core method of relove is called the unconscious vows, and that's the latest book that I've just written. And so the unconscious vows is the practice which I developed to surface any blocks to to self-love or personal power. And if it's a block to self-love, then it's going to be grounded in guilt or shame for the most part. And so really servicing that without necessarily needing to know exactly where it came from, although that can be a helpful inquiry in some cases. But a lot of the time, these are things that we've inherited, from our ancestral line. It's things that picked up from the collective unconscious. If your belief system extends to it, maybe they come from past lives, like the parallel lines, who
all of the above.
knows? All of the above.
All of the above.
But I think we come on with stuff on our tape, and then I think that life experiences tend to compound and amplify some of those core wounds.
When you say, so blocks to self-love, you say guilt and shame. I've never thought about it in these terms. So what turns up if you said the imposter complex is more to do with a lack of personal power. How else does that turn up? Because I feel like these are
the blocks to power.
Yes.
Yeah, fear and anger. And I would say that, and I also don't want to pathologize emotions. I feel like they all have really important, parts to play as well. But when we're looking at the default or the root issue, which, shows up in ways which are then impeding, full expression of ourselves.
And we're not making the emotion bad. What we're saying is it's almost like that disproportionate response and the default response that is like, oh, here we are back again. Oh, here we are back again. So when you say fear and anger, I definitely, not so much anymore, but definitely my younger years, anger was the, over the top boundary keeping, because I had boundaries crossed so much as a kid and felt unsafe. So I'd gone the other direction, right? So like, don't fuck with me, that sort of real almost aggression as a defense mechanism.
As a protection. Defense protection for sure.
So tell us more about, I was just saying how much I'm in love with your graphics on your website. You've got this beautiful, so there's an infinity symbol. I'm going to try and explain it. So infinity symbol, there's a heart in the middle with the word love. And then on the left is power with the moon symbol and stars. And I love how I'm doing all the hands, and most people will be listening to this. So anyway, you enjoy the hands, Ezzie. It's for you. And then on the right,
I'm delighting in it. In every swoop.
Wax on, wax off, wax off. On the right, there is a sun and the word peace. So can you, I am thinking that symbol is very much about the interplay of all of those things. Can you bring it all together for us in terms of, I really want to get to the sun work, because I feel like that's where the breadcrumbs are leading me. So whichever one you would like to answer. So the unconscious vows, sorry, just before you do answer that, is about self-resolution. So coming to terms with where old patterns have come from and healing them. How would you describe it?
Great question. I'd say it's around resolving internal discord. And
yes, go.
I mean, I feel like so lunar abundance, personal power and self-knowledge, real love, self-love, and ultimately love, and then the unconscious power, self-resolution, ultimately resulting in inner peace. And a lot of the time we just don't have that internal state of inner peace or contentment. What it is that we have is a state of internal strife.
Yep. For so many people. Absolutely.
For so many people. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Okay. Over to this beautiful symbol. So the interplay of the power, love, and peace, thinking about all of the bodies of work together. So we've talked about, personal power with no self-love is, ungrounded, and lots of self-love and no power is in the other direction, where there's boundaries being forced either way. So how does it all work together? What does a woman actually really feel like those indicators for people listening? So if guilt and shame are turning up, self-love is where you're looking, you know, that there's attention being drawn. If fear and anger or imposter sort of feelings are turning up, pay attention to personal power. What does a woman look like who, Siri's just about to turn on and talk to us, Ezzie. Happens all the time. I don't know why. In podcast interviews, she likes to just launch on in. Maybe
Siri has something to.
What does a woman who is grounded in both and nourished in both what's the magic that unlocks when that happens?
Well, that's usually peace.
Oh, I cannot hear you. Hang on a minute. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Do you know what she just said?
What?
I'm serious. Okay. I'll just go back and edit you out.
Maybe you could leave it in. I feel like there's a little bit of magic in that too.
Well, that maybe this is serious. Okay, what Ezzie is going to say, pay attention, people. So, what is the magic that unlocks? Oh, dear.
Well, what happens, I experience, when we come into that place of internal resolution or inner peace,
yes.
I feel like then what unlocks is the authentic expression of self.
Let's just marinate there for a second. Oh, just like moved my neck and it just completely adjusted itself. What is going on? You are a magic portal, Ezzie. I am upgrading as we speak. Actually, you know what? That's funny because I often say when I'm doing these interviews that I have chiropractic adjustments for the soul, and you're talking and I'm like, clunk, 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 clunk. Oh, my goodness.
That makes me really happy.
Can you just repeat that again? Sorry. So when these things are unlocked, oh, my goodness, I've completely forgotten what you just said.
I feel like at this point when you marry the power of love, and that brings the conditions of peace,
authentic.
And then you're able to authentically express yourself because you're deeply rooted and grounded at that point in who you are, and you have the ability to receive what life has to bring you. And then from that place, you can really step into the power of the creatrix.
Yeah.
It's like, that's where the magic actually is.
Yeah.
Like real magic, when you're being magic, not just like doing
you
magic.
are the magic.
You are the magic.
You are the magic. You are the magic. And then when you're in your authentic self, everything that has always been always yours is there. That's I feel like that's the magic. I use slightly different words, but really, like I said before, like to me, that authentic self is my internal wise woman, like the one that already knows everything there is to know. And at the moment, I feel like I'm just shedding skins, clearing out stuff to align to that.
Oh,
so,
I just got chills.
Healing the old stuff, paying attention to those cycles that don't serve me, and the rules that were never mine to follow and roles that were never mine to fulfill, like all of that stuff. I feel like that's the gift of this midlife thing where it's like, we're in this portal, we're just shedding our skins, and this wise woman is on the other side going, get quiet, get quiet, turn inwards, listen. And authentic self. That just feels so beautiful to, like I said before, marinate in. So good. So you're now in LA. Tell us more about your magical life in terms of what would your 22-year-old self just not even believe about what life looks and feels like? Everything, probably.
Just like, I feel like she had her mind blown with the book. Like that was my childhood dream, was to write and publish a book. So my 22-year-old self was like, her mind was blown then.
She hasn't quite got back into her mind yet.
She hasn't quite got back into her mind. I just, I feel like my life is so magical in ways that it's so hard to describe. I feel like in words, truly, it's just, I'm almost at a loss for words, really, because I feel like, yes, there's many aspects of my life which are amazing. I have an incredible partner. I live in a lovely place. Do walks in nature every day, but it's just, it's more about the the internal qualities, I think, which is that feeling of feeling like I've done what I came to do. And there's such an incredible feeling of internal satisfaction, fulfillment, peace, contentment. Like my internal state is so relaxed.
So good.
Yeah.
You always look like that. Like that's what I always feel. I don't mean visually look. I mean like to me, your energy in photos, just relaxed and receptive and joy. I was, when I was thinking about interviewing you this morning and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to be smiling the whole time because she smiles all the time and then I smile all the time. I'm just going to bounce back and forth. But that it is deeper than, joy is such a beautiful thing to experience, but what you're talking about is that internal, it's like that depth of contentment and fulfillment and deep, knowing you've done what you came to do. That's a pretty bloody special thing to experience. So
yeah, I feel like, another quality is trust. Like I just feel like I just trust. I just trust myself and I trust life. And that may seem like a bizarre thing to say in the current moment, quite honestly, because
I do not believe it is bizarre at all. If anything, it is more important. Trust myself and trust life. I love that.
Yeah. And
all right,
also, I trust what comes at the end of life as well. I think that's another thing as well. I trust death. I trust the beyond. There's not a sense of
time running out, or
I suppose that's it.
Yeah. I feel the same. I don't have any. I don't know. It's funny. My dad was 55 when I was born, and one of the things he always used to say was, first of all, memories and memories and love are the most important things you'll ever have. That was one of the key things, which is definitely something that's an anchor for me. And also, when your times come, your times come. Like he was quite a pragmatic person, very realistic, positive but pragmatic, and pragmatic, I should say. But that, I don't have any fear of like, oh, that's not possible anymore because I've only got X amount of years. I feel time stretching, if anything, at the moment. It feels like it's like taffy. I don't know. Maybe that's perimenopause. Maybe it's like, is this ever going to be done? But I feel like, there's a languid quality about time at the moment where it doesn't feel the same as what it used to. Maybe that's just because, my kids are grown and I don't have any day-to-day mumming responsibilities. That's a big thing. All right. So I'm curious. Let's talk about this sun depth that you are. Where's the sun coming in? I'm very interested.
Yeah. Well, I feel like, the sun in a way, the unconscious vows, when we're talking about the surfacing anything, which is, living in the unconscious, which may have been a decision that we made or a decision that we inherited, to hold ourselves back or to keep ourselves safe or to keep ourselves hidden or to keep ourselves protected or whatever it is, always for really good reasons. But if there's anything that's running in the unconscious mind, which is countervailing to sort of the conscious wants and desires, then that's going to inhibit progress. It's going to lead to resistance and stuckness and, heaviness, and just not getting results as well. So I feel like it's almost talking about this through the lens of the sun, in astrology, the solar energy is representative of the conscious energy. It's consciousness, the moon is exactly. There's sort of the deeper recesses. And so, one of the things that the unconscious vows does is that it really, brings to the surface anything that is hidden, which is preventing that sense of internal resolution or that sense of internal peace so that it can be liberated, so that the consciousness can shine through.
It's bringing it out into the light. I love
bring
that.
it out into the light. Yeah. So
especially as you're talking, what I'm becoming more and more kind of like, there's a picture forming in my mind of particularly when it is something that we've come, with a generational belief or trauma or something from a past life or whatever, very often it's not something that we're conscious of. And so when we're not conscious of it, when we're not questioning, when we're not asking answers that will rise those things from the dark and be able to shine the sun of the conscious on them, they're just running us around on an automatic pilot, which is, I know that's, how all beliefs work. But as you're talking, I'm imagining like literal sunlight just glowing onto those things. And I'm like, so good. Because, the shame and guilt that you were talking about before, particularly that this is one of the most powerful things about these storytelling interviews, for a lot of people telling their personal stories, and I know you're telling personal story as well, but weave through, your business and the work that you do in the world, is they're often talking about things that they've got a lot of guilt and shame about. And as soon as they voice them, as soon as they bring them into the light, it dissolves.
Yes.
There's no power anymore. And I've had, multiple people that have asked to come on to share their story, then DM me going, I've left this relationship, or I've left this job, or I've left this whatever. And it's like, because you've actually pulled something out of the dark, shared it, there's no power over it. And so you break that. There's some magic about breaking the bond of that and just allowing it to dissolve. It's just like, that is part of what happened to me or during my life or whatever, but it doesn't define me.
Yes.
It's a huge difference.
I mean, it's a huge difference. Just, coming out of denial that something happened and accepting that it did and forgiving yourself. And oftentimes the work that I do with people is about them finally coming to the realization that whatever happened, whatever it is that they're carrying guilt and shame around, particularly in the context of romantic relationships or the childhood environment, which is oftentimes why people have difficult relationships. Because they're just repeating what they observed or experienced in the childhood environment.
Yes.
Exactly. And it's just so incredibly powerful to come home to that knowing that it wasn't your fault.
Yeah.
What happened wasn't your fault.
Yeah. It's a very freeing thing to have that realization and actually know it rather than it be some sort of conceptual thing. Like for me,
it has to be known.
Yeah. Actually, physically, energetically knowing was a huge thing. That's something that has only really just happened to me around childhood stuff, probably only about 12 months ago. And it just took one little comment from someone and I was just like, what now? Speak again. Chiropractic adjustment of the soul happening. And then it was like, oh, okay, I'm free of that, that particular story. And because of that unraveled a hell of a lot of stuff, because I do think that is often the case as well. It's just this, it's pull one piece of string and then the ball just, dissolves and relaxes, which is a very lovely thing to feel in the body.
Oh, absolutely. When you let go of self-recrimination, self-blame.
Yep, exactly. Making yourself wrong for anything.
Totally.
Make yourself wrong for anything. Withholding acceptance, withholding surrender.
Totally.
Final question. I know we've gone for quite some time, but because you have brought up the patterns in relationships, we were talking before we started recording about my feeling is like perimenopause is this like clearing state. And a lot of the time, what becomes clear to people is relationships that they're not healthy, they're not in harmony, they're not equitable, they feel like there's a power imbalance. This is such a huge question, and I know it's our final question, but what are some of the patterns in relationships that may well be a red flag to just start looking?
Safe. The thing to pay attention to is how do you feel? Because, that's actually, our bodies are tuning forks, and we do know, in some way, yes, of course, like we can look outwards and look at the signs, and it's someone is controlling, or if someone is manipulative, or if someone is not honest, or if someone, is really adopting those defensive postures as a matter of course, if we're finding, we all are human,
yes,
and we all butt up against each other, but if we're finding that there isn't any space, for any meaningful, dialogue, if we can't be moving forwards in any way, that's obviously an indication that something is off. But I feel like one of the sort of the big pieces is like, we know, like we know in our bodies, our intuition tells us if something is off. So actually the best thing we could do is to listen and to pay attention, and to and to get help,
and not diminish how we're feeling. So I think I knew it wasn't, I knew there was something not right. I knew that, but it's almost like, and like you said before, if you've seen the pattern in childhood and that's just the pattern that you're repeating, it's normal. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's painful. Yes, it doesn't feel right, but it's normal. So normal as in, what to be normal, the uncomfortable comfort zone. So I really love that you are just saying it is as simple as just listening, like really, really listening, because we do always know.
We do know. And, if we can't hear what our heart is telling us, if we can't feel, the wisdom of our body, then, it's usually because we're numb and we're living from the neck up, again, as a protection mechanism. Like there's reasons why we apply the emotional anesthetic, and if that is the case, then proceed with care.
Yes.
Because I feel like, we need, there's what I find in my client work, which is, I think, important to share, which is that, it's like our level of self-awareness, or even our capacity to be honest with ourselves, is going to be commensurate with the depth of the care that we take with ourselves. So when we practice with self-compassion and with self-forgiveness, when we practice self-care, when we practice speaking kindly and lovingly, to ourselves as a starting point, that's where we're even going to be able to hear what our own body, our own intuition is attempting to communicate. Exactly. So it's like the more you lean into the self-love, and especially like self-compassion tends to be the practice that starts to, very slowly melt, very slowly and very gently melt some of that numbness. When we feel that, sometimes it can even be surprising, because then we start to hear what it is that our body is telling us, and that can be extremely painful.
Yeah.
Right. That was the purpose of the emotional anesthetic and the numbing, was because it was painful. So we start to, almost, you can imagine like the anesthetic's wearing off, we start to feel the pain, and we think we're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And we think it's time to go back. Actually, that's the time to double down on self-compassion and self-forgiveness, because the pain is a layer.
Yeah.
The pain is a layer. And keep going in a gentle way.
Yeah.
Gentleness and patience.
Yeah, absolutely. Gentleness is where it's at. I'm just in love with words at the moment, and gentle and compassion. I know they're not, what's that? It's onomatopoeia, isn't it? When you go pop or crackle or whatever, they're not onomatopoeic. But to me, when you say them, like compassion sounds soft and gentle and nurturing to me. I'm also in love with the word soothe, which is actually a program that I'm just about to open, which is all about self-care when the pain of the emotional stuff comes to the surface in perimenopause. So just
I love that.
Softening and surrendering and being in your body, but gently. None of this hard, fast, quick fix, crazy in and out. Stop. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, everybody should sign up and do your program.
I'm so excited.
It's just critical.
Yeah. For the last 2 days, I've been just got a massive download, and I was like, okay, all right, that's what we're doing. Okay. So then she just appeared. Where can we find you and your work in the world, beautiful, super Ezzie? Definitely going to send you a cape. It's got to have symbols on it. And
That's the start.
Yes. Stars, moon, sun, definitely.
Stars, moon. Oh, yeah. All right. Okay. It sounds super fun. Well, if you want to see the infinity loop symbol, because
yes.
I mean, it was an amazing interpretive dance that I got the opportunity to
I'm going
see.
to clip that and I'll put it on Instagram for everybody to see.
I love it.
Do you know what? I'm
cool.
in love with it even more so because the original tattoo, not the this is a cover up, but the original tattoo that I've got on my arm is actually an infinity symbol. So I love infinity symbols anyway, but it was just a very poorly executed infinity symbol. But yes. Anyway, where can we find you online? It's not about me and my tattoo.
Well, I loved what you were doing. Don't listen to her, everyone. She was gorgeous. And the infinity symbol that she was dancing to is at EzzieSpencer.com. So EZZIESPENCER, EzzieSpencer.com. And then I linked on that page to Lunar Abundance and to Relove and to the Unconscious Vows. So if you want to go deeper in any of those,
you'll
you
have
can
to come and dive into some of this wisdom. Thank you so much. That was really, really, really fun. And yeah, I didn't know a lot of what you just shared with us about some of your earlier history, but I totally understand the golden thread. And yeah, again and again, I'll see, the golden thread, the calling, and I just love sharing, space and stories. So thank you for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And you're an amazing interviewer. I mean, you caught the scent of some, things where, sometimes it's harder to express those things in the little
I don't
Instagram clips.
Yeah, I know.
So you really went there and drew it out of me. That's the talent.
That's what I love about it is the scent. Yeah, thank you. That's a great way of. Yeah, sometimes I want to go in 5 different directions. That's the problem. but I just have to corral my scenting and then just ask the next question. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Bye.
Hello, beautiful. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode, and I trust you received some golden nuggets or key takeaways that will help you to create the space and grace to more gently traverse this perimenopausal transition. I know that sometimes these midlife years feel rather messy, but they do have a magical purpose. We are literally smack bang in the middle of a powerful, potent, sometimes painful portal, the rite of passage of perimenopause. And the way I see that is that it's a bridge between our younger, energetic, dating and mating, climbing the ladder, easily able to juggle all the balls self, and our older, wiser, take no bullshit, deeply anchored in our own internal guidance, free of obligation, duty, roles and responsibilities that no longer fit us, and way more powerful wise woman within. And what's the wise woman doing right now? She's calling you to gently, patiently cradle yourself whilst you burn down what no longer serves, whilst you honor your needs, while you connect and repattern old limiting things, and you surrender to this deep midlife metamorphosis. I have created something really special for us to get together online every month, completely free. They're called the Soothe Sessions, and it's a chance to join me to create the space and the grace to calm your mind, soothe your nervous system, and learn to feel really safe in your body so that you can let the wise woman have her way with you. We'll join online every month for 90 minutes, and the sessions will include a little bit of a fundamental background info about this powerful portal of perimenopause. I'll share with you a simple and effective tool from my toolbox to offer you some self-soothing when this tricky transition starts to get you down. And my toolbox includes everything from sleep science to energetic medicine, bodywork, shiatsu, traditional Chinese medicine, oriental psychology, yoga, meditation, breathwork, all sorts of weird and wonderful East meets West goodness. I'll also offer you a high quality question for your self-awareness and growth. And then perhaps most delicious of all, a super relaxing 20-minute restorative yoga or yoga nidra to allow you the space and grace to integrate what you've learnt. You will find everything about the Soothe sessions underneath the show notes in all the podcast platforms, and also on my website at kyliepatchett.com.au under free monthly masterclass. I hope you will take the opportunity to join me. I'd love to meet more of you live, and I will be swapping the time zones around from evening to early morning Australian time so that everyone around the world, including the 29 countries that Zoom on in across Australia and the Asia Pacific region and Europe and the Americas, and even Iceland, which I've just seen today, which is pretty cool. So yeah, the time zones will actually change so that they'll be good for you. And if you register, there will always be a replay. So I hope you'll join me. Here's to you going gently through this midlife metamorphosis, and have a beautiful day. Thanks so much for tuning into another episode, and I trust you're walking away with inspiration, aha, maybe some chiropractic adjustments of the soul where you've realized perhaps some ways that you're getting in your own way, or something that needs to be healed, or something that's calling to you that your heart really, really wants to birth or create or step into in this second cycle of life. And if that's you, I am throwing my arms wide open and inviting you to check out all of the ways that we could potentially partner together at kyliepatchett.com.au. That's my website for the podcast, and also one-on-one and group programs in midlife mentorship, yoga and breath work in specifically designed menopause classes online, and also, super excitingly, a list of retreats around Australia that I have been blessed to partner with some pretty darn spectacular humans who also help midlife mavens through this transition point. So if you are looking for some support, some community, some tools, just a safe place to actually reconnect to who you are, what you want, and come home to your own power and magnificence, I would love to welcome you into any one of those containers. So head on over to kyliepatchett.com.au, and I will be back in your ears very, very soon.